resistance causes suffering. Every single time the suffering is coming from the resistance to what is happening, not the thing that we're resisting. We're so used to, putting our attention out into the world, and feeling like stuff is happening to us from the outside, and we're helpless. And coming from the mind, that's always controlling. So we're always thinking to try and make things better, to improve things, to prevent suffering. But if we're looking at the word like that, then we're always looking at what's wrong in order to make it right. And so our attention is focused on what's wrong, and then that kind of draws more of what we don't like, of what's wrong, into our lives. And so we resist. And when you notice pain, discomfort, upset, hurt, however it looks physically, mentally, or emotionally, there's resistance in there. What we don't like is typically a distortion of a pure experience. We're so well trained, it's such a strong habit to resist. So once we notice something that we don't like, that feels uncomfortable, pressure filled, painful, we've probably already been resisting for quite some time. In fact, I would put money on it, that we've always been resisting for some time. And actually, it only really flags up in our attention when it becomes painful, when it becomes uncomfortable, when it becomes an experience that we're not enjoying, because that intensity has built up to a degree that it's hooked our attention now. It's become more apparent to us. So we kind of then look at that distortion and try and fix that. But, there's actually no way to change that distortion, to make things better, other than to identify and become aware of actually the resistance that you're having to it. What is that resisting dialogue? What is that resisting feeling? That desire or need to make things better, to improve on things, is almost the underlying pattern that creates the resistance to everything that does not match our expectations. So we kind of live in a world of resistance, really. It's such a normal thing to do. It's not natural, but it's a very normal thing to do, to resist. And so for me, just uncovering that there is resistance happening, if you're suffering, if there's anything that's not peaceful, happy, calm, lovely, joyful, then there's probably some resistance, almost like you're, operating with the handbrake partially applied, or like walking through treacle. We're not operating in a pure, clear way. And it's useful to recognize that. I remember the first time I heard that resistance caused suffering, it was like, a light bulb moment for me. I was just like, really? Like, is that actually true? And like anything, I don't just take anybody's word for it, and I don't really want you to just take my word for it. It's explore. Is that true for you? So you stay open-minded, and then you actually start to see a fuller picture, a bigger picture. So you actually start to recognize that there is a resistance within you that might just feel like pain, you see. And that's why, for me, pain is a useful tool to actually start to strip away all the patterns of belief and behavior that we've adopted over the years, so we can come back to the pure, clear experience, where there's no resistance, where there's just a complete openness and expansion in our experience. Or expansiveness, where it's always gentle when there's an openness. There's a gentleness there. It's when we kind of close in to protect ourselves and push things away that we don't like. Actually, that's actually what creates a whole load of things that we don't like, because we're experiencing everything through the pressure and the distortion of resistance. So, explore this in your own experience. See if what I'm talking about is true or not for you. And really, the first thing you can do for that is to not resist that you're resisting. It's like the top layer of resistance. And the minute you bring in curiosity and playfulness to explore and see, yes, it might be true for you right now because it's the experience that you're having. I'm not saying it's not a real experience, it is, but it's uncovering and looking at and recognizing what's creating that experience. Can anything be done differently? so that you can actually stop resisting so much. And for me, like I say, curiosity is such a cool tool, but also just paying attention to what you're aware of right now in the room that you're in, being in the body, noticing your environment, what you can see, what you can hear, using your five senses. It's so useful. And listening is, for me, one that really allows your awareness to widen. So then the point of focus is not so pressure filled, because we're so used to keeping our attention very contracted down, and then everything's pressure filled because it's a narrow bandwidth. We need to widen that awareness to allow everything to be gentle and more free flowing, and powerful rather than forceful. So have a little play with that, explore in your own experience, and prove me right or prove me wrong.